Today, I am diving into what I believe are the 10 most visually and technically impressive Nintendo Switch 2 games. Nintendo's new system is more than just an upgrade. It's delivering higher resolutions, smoother frame rates, and performance that we've never seen before on a handheld hardware. The Switch 2 and Nintendo have had their critics, myself among them, but sometimes we just have to sit back and admit that they got some things right. We don't have to agree with everything, but as long as a community, we can testify to the fact that there are some certified bangers on the Switch 2. And if we're being completely honest, the performance of some of those is exceeding our expectations of the console. So disregarding all of the politics and corporate jargon, from reimagined classics to massive open worlds that seemed impossible on the first Switch, these are the games that prove the Switch 2 can hang with the big boys. So, let's get into it. So to start things off, let's talk about Hogwarts Legacy. On the original Switch, this game was a compromised experience. Lower resolution, stripped down environments, and uneven performance. It was playable, but it felt like a very different game compared to the other versions. On the Switch 2, it's night and day. Now, you are getting higher resolution visuals, smoother frame rates, and far more detailed environments, making Hogwarts and the surrounding world come alive. Walking through the castle feels immersive with atmospheric lighting and detail in every corridor. Exploring the Forbidden Forest or flying over the countryside is fluid and responsive, whereas before it often felt sluggish. This version of Hogwarts Legacy proves that the Switch 2 can handle large-scale, open-world RPGs without massive compromises. It's not just running better, it's running in a way that feels faithful to the original vision on other consoles, and that's a huge milestone for Nintendo hardware. And of course, no list like this would be complete without Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, now re-released as upgraded editions on the Switch 2. These games already pushed the original hardware to its absolute limits, and while I would personally consider them both masterpieces, they were also plagued by frame rate dips and inconsistent performance. On the Switch 2, those problems are gone. Both games now run at higher resolutions and significantly smoother frame rates. Now I must admit, when I first played the games on the original Switch, I was fanboying too hard to see any real issues. But now, going back after playing the Switch 2 version, I have to say how naive I was. These updates have completely changed the feel of exploration in Hyrule. Combat is more responsive, gliding across the skies is fluid, and the massive open world feels more immersive because the hardware isn't struggling to keep up. These aren't remakes, these are the same great adventures, but the improvements in performance make them feel fresh all over again. For longtime fans who already spent hundreds of hours in these games, the Switch 2 versions are proof that better hardware really can breathe new life into familiar worlds. Now, whilst many people would have expected a Hogwarts update, next up is Split Fiction, one of the very first Unreal Engine 5 titles running on the Switch 2, which came out of nowhere. For years, UE5 was thought to be out of reach for Nintendo hardware, but Split Fiction proves that assumption wrong. The lighting is dynamic and cinematic, the textures are sharp, and the overall performance feels surprisingly close to what you'd expect on far more powerful systems. The Switch 2 may not push UE5 to its absolute limits, but the fact it can run a game like this smoothly is impressive. The frame rate stays consistent, the environments look rich, and there's a polish here that sets it apart from almost any third-party Switch title. Split Fiction isn't just another game, it's proof of concept. It shows developers that Nintendo's new hardware is ready for modern engines, and that means we're likely to see even more ambitious third-party projects heading to the platform in the years ahead, many of which we've already had announcements for. And now, for one of the more controversial, yet the first game released for the Nintendo Switch 2. Mario Kart World is Nintendo doing what Nintendo does best, taking a beloved franchise and turning it into a showcase for its new hardware. At first glance, you'll notice the vibrant, detailed tracks, but it goes deeper than that. The game holds on to a rock-solid 60 frames per second, even with multiple races, dynamic weather, and tons of visual chaos happening on screen. The environments are bigger and more interactive than before, with some open world elements that let you explore outside of the standard races. The extra detail makes the game not just visually impressive, but fun to watch and play, and thanks to HDR, the bright colours and lighting effects look incredible whether you are playing docked or handheld. Mario Kart has always been about fun first, but here it doubles as a graphical showcase. It proves that Nintendo can deliver a colourful, family-friendly title that still takes advantage of modern performance standards. Now this one wasn't quite the Mario we were all expecting or hoping for, but Donkey Kong Bonanza might surprise people with just how technically ambitious it really is. We're talking about destructible environments, interactive terrain, and levels that react dynamically to what you do. Rocks crumble, platforms collapse, and trees fall during gameplay, and the Switch 2 handles it all without missing a beat. On the first Switch, this kind of chaos would almost certainly tank the frame rate, but here it stays impressively smooth. The visuals are bold, with vibrant, detailed worlds, which truly bring Donkey Kong to life more than ever before. This is also a great example of how Nintendo's design philosophy has shifted with stronger hardware. It's not just about higher resolutions, it's about creating worlds that are more responsive and reactive, something that wasn't really possible before. Donkey Kong Bonanza is proof that Nintendo can use the extra horsepower to expand gameplay possibilities as much as visual fidelity. Next up is a technical marvel, No Man's Sky. This is the kind of game that exposes hardware weaknesses. Entire galaxies are generated in real time and the scale is enormous. On the original Switch, that ambition came at a cost. Blurry visuals, choppy performance, and painfully long load times. On the Switch 2, however, it's like playing a different game. Now you have your stable frame rates, sharper textures, and much improved draw distances. Flying from the vacuum of space straight down onto the planet feels seamless in a way it never did before. The colours are richer, the terrain detail is clearer, and the world feels alive in a way that invites exploration instead of fighting against the hardware. For a game like this, where discovery and immersion are everything, smoothness is critical. On Switch 2, No Man's Sky isn't just running, it's thriving. It shows the hardware can finally handle massive, procedurally generated worlds without compromise, and that's a huge leap forward. When it comes to fighting games, performance is everything, and that's exactly why Street Fighter VI on the Switch 2 is such a big deal. On the first Switch, a demanding fighter like this would have been unthinkable. The frame rate drops alone would ruin competitive play, but with the Switch 2, you're getting a smooth, responsive gameplay at stable frame rates, along with sharper visuals that make each character and stage shine. What's impressive here isn't just how it runs, but how well it runs. The controls feel tight, inputs are responsive, and that matters more in a fighter than almost any other genre. You can actually take the game seriously in handheld mode without worrying about lag or inconsistent performance. This is the kind of title that shows the Switch 2 isn't just for big RPGs or cinematic adventures. It's a console that can now support competitive, fast-paced experiences, and that's a huge step forward for the hardware and brand. Now, let's talk about one of the more recent releases, Star Wars Outlaws, one of the biggest third-party showcases for the Switch 2 so far. Built on Ubisoft's Snowdrop engine, this is a visually ambitious open-world Star Wars game that looks and feels next-gen, and somehow runs on a Nintendo handheld. What stands out here is scale and fidelity working together. You can move seamlessly between dense cities, desert outposts, and lush alien landscapes without the performance completely falling apart. Lighting and shadows are cinematic, the environments feel rich with detail, and the frame rate stays impressively steady even during fast-paced combat or hoverbike chases. For years, the biggest criticism of Nintendo consoles has been that they couldn't keep up with the modern AAA games. Star Wars Outlaws is proof that times are changing. The fact that it plays this well on the Switch 2 means we might finally be seeing an era when Nintendo systems get real versions of blockbuster titles, and not just watered down ports chucked to us plebeians on the side with our modern Game Boys. And now for one of the most incredible titles to land on the Switch 2, Cyberpunk 2077. This is a game that pushed even the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One to their limits, so seeing it run natively and well on a Nintendo handheld is nothing short of shocking. The Switch 2 version makes heavy use of DLSS upscaling to strike a balance between sharp visuals and fluid frame rates. You can even toggle between performance and quality modes, giving you real flexibility depending on how you want to experience Night City. What's wild is just how alive the city feels here. Dense crowds, neon-drenched streets, reflective surfaces, all running without the constant stutter and resolution drops we come to expect on the weaker hardware. This isn't a cloud port, and it isn't a cut-down shadow of the real thing. It's Cyberpunk, playable on the go, in a form that feels true to the original. That alone is a huge statement about what the Switch 2 can really do, and this is my preferred way of playing the game. And finally, a game that strangely flew under the radar, Fast Fusion. This is one of the Switch 2's most eye-catching launch titles. Racing games have always been the perfect way to show off new hardware, and this one wastes no time proving what the system can do. In docked mode, Fast Fusion runs at a razor-sharp 4K resolution with a locked 60 frames per second, and it never flinches, even when the screen is filled with explosions, boost trails, and multiple racers all colliding at once. Even in handheld play, the results are striking. HDR support makes the colours pop, and the track lighting and particle effects look surprisingly close to what you'd expect on far more powerful consoles. The most important thing here is consistency. Racing lives and dies on stable frame pacing, and Shinen, the studio behind the game, has always been known for squeezing every last drop out of Nintendo hardware. They pulled off similar feats with Fast RMX on the original Switch, and with Fast Fusion, they're back to prove that Switch 2 is ready for prime time. So there you have it, 10 games that prove the Nintendo Switch is more than just a step up. From sprawling open worlds like Cyberpunk and Star Wars Outlaws, to polished first-party classics like Mario Kart World and Zelda. This system is delivering the performance and visuals fans have been asking for. It's smoother, sharper, and more powerful than any Nintendo console we've seen before. Which of these games impress you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let me know of anything I've missed. Hit that like button if you're hyped for the Switch 2, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the best games this console has to offer. With that said, thanks for watching, stay cozy, and I'll see you around.